Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney.
Okay.
How are ya?
Well, I absolutely whooped ass in my fantasy football league this week, which is much of an improvement compared to last week, where we recorded well before I actually played all my fantasy games because we couldn't record on Monday Night Football night. But let me tell you, sucked last week, and the Bills sucked last week. But this week was a beautiful time. But really, truthfully, the most important thing that happened was that today I had a coffee date with my I mean, he's still my mentor teacher, like the professor that I mean, he's old. I love my professor, like from when I first started teaching, who was like I always describe him as the professional equivalent of the person who walks you down the aisle, like when you get married.
Aw.
Like he's like the professional version of my dad. Like he is
I love that.
my favorite person. And we had a coffee date today. Just caught up because I haven't seen him since COVID, and it was so great. I mean, and actually, I haven't seen him since I left for Thailand. But then, of course, he
That's
told
so
me that
long.
I know, he told me that his teaching career has been like everything's been weird since 2017. I was like, oh, so since I left. He was like, yeah, basically. It's
Aw,
like,
that's sweet.
yeah. So we chatted, we talked. It was so nice to catch up with him, and that was my happy for the week. I was like, hopefully that sustains me for a while. So,
Yeah, surely
how about
something needs
you?
to. You know, just trucking along, just making it. Got a busy week up ahead. Tomorrow is Caitlin Richards, my artist, Caitlin Richards, her birthday. So every
Nice.
Tuesday night we go to Doyle's for her show. If you're in the New York area, if you're in the Queens area, go to Doyle's on Tuesday nights from 8 to 10. I don't remember the time. I'm there from like 6 to 12, so I don't actually remember the time for her show. It's 8 to 10. But tomorrow's her birthday, so it's gonna be super fun. It's gonna be like a blowout, and super stoked about that. I'm going to see A Haunting in Venice on Wednesday, which is the new
Oh,
Agatha Christie movie
Dan and I want to
with
see it
all
so
of the
bad,
good
but I have
characters.
no free time. Ugh.
I have Wednesday, so I'm going on Wednesday. Um, yeah, I will tell you a fun story about today. There were a lot of not fun stories. Like I forgot to bring my milk to the office, and I almost had a breakdown over it. But it's fine.
Yeah.
But me and Nora, for I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast. It's not a huge deal. We do a lot of buy one get one coffee stuff. That's like our thing.
Yeah.
So last summer, every Friday, we would alternate who did buy one get one at Gregory's, and then Starbucks has been doing it for September. So we've been alternating in September. And then today, there was a buy one get one on Gregory's new drinks. This drink, MK, it is a yuzu something or other. And what it is espresso, peach syrup, yuzu marmalade, and sparkling water. So
That would kill me, I think.
there's a lot happening,
Yeah.
there. But she's like, "Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "I'll try." Oh, it was called like yuzu tonic or something. Like it was called something stupid. And I
Yeah.
was like, I mean, I'll try it. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. It's coffee. I've never not drank coffee. I've not finished it, but we got this, and it's like you had to try it in layers because the bottom layer was basically syrup. And I was like, this is really thick. Like it was the marmalade on the bottom, and then you
Mhm.
had some like espresso and sparkling water in the center, and then you had a little bit of a peach flavor with sparkling water on the top. And it was so I tried all of the layers, and it is perhaps the worst drink I've ever had.
Um,
A
if
real close second to what's her face in Disney. You know her name. What's her name? The soda drink place, the one.
Oh, Beverly. Yes.
Yeah, real close second to Beverly. But at least you know what's happening in Beverly. Like it's all one flavor.
Yeah. If you really want both energy and the flavor of yuzu, I would suggest, and mightily endorse actually, it's one of my favorite drinks. Panera has a refresher, which are their like caffeinated drinks. Their mango
Starbucks
yuzu
has those.
refresher is like
Love
it's
mango.
it's mango and yuzu and like a little bit of like lemon lime-ish flavor, so it's all citrusy. Hella like I don't think they use Red Bull, but they use something equivalent to the level of caffeine that is in Red Bull.
It's probably the same thing Starbucks uses for their refreshers.
Yeah, but I definitely recommend it as one of my favorite drinks. And in that, and then
citrus, like in an acidic way, am I gonna
no,
die?
it's very sweet. The mango and the yuzu are much more like Dan usually gets the blood orange one, and he thinks the mango yuzu one is too sweet compared to the blood orange one. So like that's
I had never heard of yuzu until today. So
I love it. But that makes sense because it is. Yeah. So if you want to try yuzu and enjoy the flavor, I would suggest that. I can't imagine yuzu and espresso. Like you said espresso and then you said yuzu.
You're right.
And I as someone who does enjoy yuzu and knows what it tastes like, that's wrong.
It was a lot of conflicting feelings. Like I made her try it first. I was like, all right, you bought it because I bought Thursday, so she bought today. I was like, you bought it. You have to try it first. She's like, what? I was like, I need to watch. I need to watch what happens when you drink it. And she just kind of looked at me and then laughed. And I was like, oh no. And we the whole way back up to the office. It's just downstairs. Like my gosh, what's it called? Just Gregory's. Gregory's is just on the bottom floor of our building. Like it's not that far. And the whole way up, we were trying it in different levels. And we got up to the office and we're still laughing about it. And everyone was like, what is going on? I don't know what's going on. So I didn't have my second coffee today. And so now I'm having coffee at 11 o'clock at night. So that's fine.
I had my third cup of coffee at 6:30 p.m. So that's the only reason I'm a functioning human being.
Yeah. Well, I yawned a lot last episode, so I'm hoping to cut that out with my coffee in my New York Coffee Fest mug. That was my best. I don't know if I ever told you about that. I got free tickets on Gold Star to Coffee Fest, and you got a free alcoholic coffee drink with it. And then you got to taste all of the coffees and the different things and samples and whatnot. It was an insane deal. And it was VIP for the one I got. I still do not know how I got it for free, but I did. And it's one of the best things I've ever done. It was one of the first things I did by myself in New York.
Very nice. I appreciate that.
Best time of my life. Those were the days.
Right.
You know what else makes a good day? A little spiritual guidance. You have some wisdom for me.
This wisdom, I think it's a beautiful quote. I think it's an important way to look at life. I also picked it at a very different time than when I watched the episode of The Exorcist. Okay. So you said something on Sunday's episode about dreams, and then I realized how uncomfortably poignant this quote was and why I really wish that I hadn't chosen it. But
that's inspiring.
Because the quote is, I dream of painting and then I paint my dream. Vincent van Gogh.
I have a fun fact about painters for you in this episode. So.
Which I think is a beautiful quote. I think it's a quote about creating the world that you want to live in. But based on the experience we're about to have, I hope no one ever paints their dream again.
I would also hope that. It makes me think of, what is it called? Lucid dreaming. Yeah. Which also terrifies me.
I don't understand lucid dreaming. I know that there's levels of lucid dreaming, and some people just dream in a lucid enough way to know that they're awake, and some people have crazy dreams. Dan knows he's dreaming all of his dreams. He like knows
I
in his dream he will know he's dreaming and he'll be like, this is weird, and like critiques his dreams mid dream. Could not be me.
such a weirdo. I also could not be that way. I think I've known sometimes, but like I've heard too many things about people trying to learn how to lucid dream and it turns to them just having night terrors.
Yeah, no.
And that's not interesting to me.
No.
I did buy the book on how to lucid dream, but I haven't read it yet.
What's wrong
I can't hear you. You got too loud. You got too.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, that's terrifying. I would never do it. I'm gonna do it.
Well, I haven't yet. I just bought the book. I bought the book like 3 years ago. Like I've had it for a minute. So just in case, because it's also fascinating. Like psychologically, it's fascinating. So I need someone else to do it that like I know in real life. Like
Oh my
podcasters do it.
God. I just thought of something. You were talking about buying the book, and I was thinking about the fact that in in an episode of Only Murders in the Building that I recently watched, this is not spoilery. I will not tell you spoilery. But Steve Martin's character was reading a book called How to Talk to Women, and that's what I was thinking of when you were talking about like how to lucid dream. And it suddenly remembered that if you listened to Sunday's episode, you will know that I was going off the fucking wall trying to think of when I heard someone reference Dom DeLuise lately, and it was in an episode of Only Murders in the Building. So for all of you who waited 5 days for the answer to that question,
You're welcome.
that's where it was.
Speaking of books you buy that have things on the outside of them, there's that new-ish book that is the guide to murder your employer or something.
Oh my gosh, you know he's coming out with another one?
No, I haven't read it yet. So
Oh, I haven't read it either, but my friend just told me that that book was so popular that he's coming out with a second one called How to Murder Your Spouse.
I love that so much. Well, I hope he doesn't follow in the steps of the one who released How to Kill Your Husband and then killed her husband. Like can't do it again. But so Rachel sent it to me like a week ago, and she was like, "You should buy this book for your office because I'm having some office issues." And literally, like the day before she told me that, I had just put it on notice to my library because they don't carry it yet, and I was like, "Oh, don't worry, it's already on my list."
Perfect.
Like,
Perfect.
granted, it's not a physical copy, so it doesn't like get the point across, but I do actually want to read it too. Like I've heard it's actually a good book. So
yeah.
But yeah, so tell us if you have any books that you think have fun covers.
Or self-help books that we need to read.
Or if you will lucid dream for me and tell me if it gave you night terrors or not. So,
all of those things. You have so many missions this week.
So many. That's what we're here for. This week is our season finale. I guess this is my season finale dance. I did this last week when you said it too. So
yeah.
Here we are. That's what I do now. It is The Exorcist, season 1, episode 10. It is just titled 3 Rooms because it takes place in 3 rooms. It aired December 16th of 2016. So as I said, it is our Christmas episode. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
It's rated 8.4 out of 10. Number 1 song is still Black Beatles. The song, not the band. I don't know if there's a band, but I always thought there was. The number 1 movie is Rogue One because it is Christmas time. That's how Star Wars
because it's December, so Star Wars, obviously.
Right. The number 1 book is Cross the Line by James Patterson.
Okay.
So this day, there weren't real things that happened this day, like in 2016.
Yeah.
So I've put together a collection for you.
Okay.
So there was a Cuisinart recall on this day, and the headline said it ruined everyone's holiday plans.
Oh my God.
I went to the New York Times for some headlines.
I love that.
didn't know what else to do.
I love it.
My other headline that I have chosen from the New York Times says, "Therapy cats for dementia patients." Fine, all fine and dandy. Batteries included. I don't know. I don't have the New York Times subscription, so I couldn't read the article to tell you what that meant. But
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Nope, just kidding. I was like, I subscribed to something with the Death and Aliens email to look at headlines, but it wasn't New York Times, it was Wall Street Journal, so just ignore that.
Oh, well, this is the one. So then I picked some things from history. It is the birth of Catherine of Aragon. Fun
Clearly not in
times.
2016.
Sure, sure. I actually didn't even write down the year, but it was like, ages ago. Ages
Yeah,
ago. It is chocolate covered anything day. Apropos.
love that.
And in 1773, it is the day the Boston Tea Party protest. So
You knew that number. You said December 16th, and I was like, there's something important about that number. It's the Boston Tea
Boston Tea
Party
Party.
because I'm a
Yeah.
fucking weirdo.
Yeah, because like dates and stuff. That's not what I learned in school. That's what I took tests on in school. That's not what I learned in school.
To be clear, I don't think I learned that in school. I think I just learned it for fun because I'm a weirdo. Like,
I just don't like dates. I could probably tell you like what people wore and what they like said to each other on that day. Not this one in particular because I can't.
Right?
But
yeah,
dates are not the ones for me. Unless there's a song about it, then I can remember them. The director is Jason Ensler, who we've already spoken about in episode 5. The writers are just the screenplay writer and the book writer. And there was no editor listed.
Oh,
at
which
all.
is interesting because there was a load of editing.
Ton of editing.
This episode was not one that could have been done with a single shot. There was definitely editing involved.
Yep. So I reread the list a couple times and didn't find an editor. So I was like, all right, I guess that's that.
Okay. So was there like a cinematographer listed or anything that just
I didn't look. There probably surely there was.
Well, I mean, surely there should have been an editor as well, but
right. I was just appalled. So I moved on. Our guest star is Bruce Davidson, who plays none other than Pope Sebastian. Now this man,
he was in 42 seconds of the episode.
But that's okay because he's been in 42,000 other things.
Fair enough.
He's in every other thing in the world. He is known for X-Men, the 2001. He is known for 1923. Longtime Companion and Ozark, and just a mess of other things. Like the list goes on. He has the exact same birthday as Gilda Radner, which is fun.
Oh.
He's actually not in a lot of funny things, so that's interesting. Maybe she got all the humor talent, he got all the dramatic talent.
Maybe. Yeah.
But this is my fun painter fact. He planned on being a painter. He went to I did not write down the school because I was like, I'll remember. I do not. But he went to one of the top schools.
Yeah.
And he was like going to be a painter. He was like enrolled in the arts. And then someone bet him to audition for a play at school. And he did this play and decided then that he was going to be an actor instead. And here we are.
Here we are.
And here we are at the beginning of the episode. We have a pretty big recap at the beginning, so in case you forgot what happened. But we start exactly where we left off, where Angela is choking Casey and Tomas barges in. And the demon says, there's no Angela left to save. And Tomas is just like, not believing it. He's like, no, I'm going to do this. And I was like, I don't know, dude. They seem pretty integrated to me. But he is hell-bent. And as he starts to pray, she hangs him from the ceiling and drops him to the floor, and he passes out just immediately. Yeah. I was like, that's great. And speaking of waking up in dreams, he wakes up suddenly. And I was like, and like he was speaking Spanish, and I was like, is he like back home? Like, is this like his childhood home? Like, what's happening? Turns out we learn later it is his grandmother's home, but it was close.
Yeah.
And then he sees on the bed that Marcus is there.
Which I'm not gonna lie, for a very split second, I was confused because I thought, like, I don't know if I just like watched too much sci-fi, but like in my brain, that had to be something where he and Marcus were being like transported to the same alternate reality. But I was like, but Marcus is not.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. And then I was like, oh wait, no, we're dealing with demons. Right, got it.
Like, I understood there were demons, but I was like, if he had died, then they would, maybe this was like a notice of them both dying and going into like purgatory.
Right. I was like the same kind of, they had to be in the same plane of existence. Like, and so I thought, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. But we learned today is the day of the Pope arriving, and Angela is not going to be there.
Because you know, she's having family difficulties.
Yes, also known as trying to murder her family, but fine.
Sure, that's
so
like
Maria.
I'm sure that's what Ed Gein called it too, like family difficulties before he murdered his brother.
Sure.
Which is alleged. We don't have proof that he's the one who killed his brother. Just
Ed
throwing it out there. Yeah.
He killed his mom.
He did kill his mom, but he also, most people believe that he also killed his brother. Because there's no answers to what happened to his brother.
Fair assumption, but yeah. So we're there with our dream team, you know, Simon and Maria is wanting to be possessed still, and he's like, not a chance. But then Marcus and Bennett are there. And we learned that sweet Bennett is not dead yet.
I needed that in my life.
I was like, they're gonna bring this guy back to kill him
just to kill him again. Yeah, no, for sure. I was nervous. I was for sure nervous about that.
I was like, because they can't kill Marcus. And so I was like, they're for sure gonna kill Bennett. Like, they're going to like put my heart back in my chest or rip it back out.
Here's the thing. If they had just killed Bennett, I would have been fine. But as the episode went on, there was the potential of something else happening to Bennett, and that I would not have been okay with.
Yeah, no, that would not have been an acceptable choice. But Bennett makes a joke. He's like, I think we figured out who the mole is.
That was one of my favorite moments because, like, sometimes you forget that Bennett has, like,
a personality.
A personality because he's so, like, caught up in this. But, like, it just reminds you that he, like, actually is, like, a good person.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's like him and Marcus, like, actually get along even though they like, fight like siblings.
They do. That's what it is.
And, like, maybe Marcus pulled a gun on him once, but, like, you know,
Marcus pulled a gun on him once because Marcus is a temperamental baby who like can't handle when people get in his way of doing the right thing because he knows it's the right thing. But would Marcus have ever actually shot Bennett? No. I don't think so.
He would like have shot him in like the arm. Like, yeah. But he would not have like shot him to injure him. No. Like it would have been permanent.
Yeah.
So they're all like hanging out and Simon is telling him, he's like, so here's the thing. You can join us and you can integrate or you can die. Those are your options. And I was like, that's pretty intense. And then he slits both their wrists. And I was like, well, that's more intense now. I was like, okay.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I didn't know what to expect. It wasn't that.
No.
That was not what I was expecting. I thought he was gonna like make one of them choose and kill the other. I thought it was a leverage thing, but you know.
See, that would have been too much leverage because of what the next thing coming up is. It would have been too much.
Yes.
But
yeah. But then we go to the credits. And it was actually a pretty long opening because a lot's happening.
A lot happened. I do think that opening felt as long as it did because there was so long of a recap, though.
I think you're right, and it was a shorter episode. It was like right at 41 minutes or 42 minutes.
Yeah,
Like it
the
wasn't
episode
any longer for a finale.
the episode was it was almost maybe shorter than the other episodes.
Yeah.
It was, but then again, it was on. We're talking about network TV, like, and so
Mhm.
if it wasn't like it's not like a thing that's for the internet only. So like they had a time
Right.
slot that they had to put it in, like, so
Yeah. I think it was because the recap was so long and then the intro was a little bit longer that it just felt like a shorter episode
yeah,
outside of it.
that's probably
Yeah.
true.
So then we go back to Tomas and he's at his grandmother saying nothing is real. And Marcus is trying to convince him to give up on Angela. And he's like, no, like there's no way to save her. You can't do anything about this. Just like give up.
Yeah.
And he's also like, you're gonna die unless you wake up right now. And Angela has put a knife in his hand in the real life. And so that's good.
Yeah,
We go
it's
back to
very
Angela.
comforting.
Yeah. Who is telling her family about the Pope's death that's oncoming and how they need to change things. She's like, I can't just murder my whole family. I need to keep this image thing going. It's like, yeah, you're not wrong. Don't
She's
kill
like,
your entire family.
she's like, the opportunities that arise once the Pope is dead won't exist if I murdered my whole family. And I was like, what the fuck kind of logic is that?
Right. I mean, you're not wrong, but like maybe that's not the first thought you have, you know, like maybe there's a few other steps you take first.
Right.
But then Kat, in her boldness, starts firing back. And she is just the best. I love her. And then Angela goes to slap her and can't.
Oh, that was so good.
I rewound at this moment. I was like, whoa. I was like, did this just happen?
Yeah.
And it did. And he just says, Reagan. And then Angela wakes up in her head and she's in this like little secret room, bedroom.
But it's Reagan's bedroom from the original
Yeah, from
movie.
yeah. And it's like her little safe haven she's built in her mind. And she hears the salesman saying that he didn't get all of her. And you learn that she's like somehow she did the CBT therapy correctly, unlike the rest of the world. She is compartmentalized. I for sure would be fully possessed, would not do well with this.
Oh no, for sure. The only thing I can think that might stop me is that my anxiety is so high that my brain is always going in 15 different directions at once. So it might be possible that I just like accidentally didn't get fully possessed.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be able to
like
block them
or something.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be able to block them on purpose or like lock them out, but I might have like dissociated just enough to like forget a part of my brain in my integration.
I could see that. I could see that happening with me as well. Like my brain also thinks a lot of different things at one time. Yeah. Man, I would not be well for demons. They would not enjoy possessing me.
No.
It'd be a lot of work. But we learned he didn't get all of her, and so we realized that it's not full integration.
Which, believe me, not at all. Y'all heard my predictions for this episode. Nowhere near what I thought was going to happen.
No, nobody guessed it. None of us. None of two of us.
Both of my major predictions, so wrong.
Yep. And so we go back to Tomas, and he's like praying again, and he's like, "You're not real. You're not real." Marcus is saying, "I'm you, Tomas." Like, it's like obviously it's all in his head, and he brings up his dying grandmother, which is where we learn that we're in her house, and she's like coughing, and like her teeth are falling out, and he's saying all these terrible things to him. He's saying like he left his grandmother when she was dying, and that God never wanted him, and that's why he had to lie about seeing him. And then he says that the grandma died for weeks, that it was not, he was like, no, she died quickly in her sleep. And he was like, no, she died for weeks. And
by the time,
not still.
Very sad. I don't, so here's the thing. I think that it is true. I think that his grandma did die more slowly than he wants to, and that he convinced himself that she died quickly because he was covering up for his guilt based on all the other things that, like, when he finally like confesses his sins and apologizes later, he like and knows that he should have been there for his grandma. And so I think it is true, but I also think it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Whether she
Right.
died 12 minutes after he got off the phone with her or 12 days, he knows he made the wrong decision not being there for her.
Yeah, I don't know that he knew she died 2 weeks later. I think he really thought she did die within that 24 hours, but I do feel like he does feel guilty about it. He knows he should have been there regardless, like you're saying.
Yeah. No, that's the thing is I don't know if this is new information for him. I do think that it doesn't matter if it is or not because the guilt is what's real. And I think that it's part of the thing that he's fabricated in his head. I honestly almost think that the information might not be new. I think he might know in the back of his mind how bad things were, and he's created this story for himself to like deal with it. Just like he created the story of her wanting him to be the Pope.
Yeah. I only feel like he didn't create that part or that he didn't create this barrier because when he did confess, he did like fully admit to everything, and he didn't. I feel like he would have mentioned it in that like monologue of like,
maybe
I sinned when I lied about this. I sinned when I couldn't uphold Jessica. Like, I think he would have been like, I should have been there for those 2 weeks and I wasn't. Like,
well, but he does say he should have been there with her. Like, he does say that. He just doesn't specify the time. So I don't know.
I don't know. But next up, it gets very gross. She starts like falling to pieces, and it is.
Oh my God, the close up of her maggot face, like I almost vomited. I'm not gonna lie.
I did not enjoy. I thought it was about to get really bad because I said on Sunday I saw Satanic Hispanic yesterday, and the one episode or whatever like story that I just couldn't get behind, they were like pulling their skin off. And it was, and I thought that was about to happen in this scene. And then I was like, I am not watching the same movie anymore.
Well,
like
the worst part, I was talking to one of my friends at work about a movie where somebody's eyeballs popped out of their head right before I went to go watch the episode. And I was talking about how eyeball things are like my number one do not do list, which we all on this podcast know I do not do eyeballs. So when she had maggots instead of eyeballs, I was like, oh, fuck me.
Yeah, it was not a pretty scene, but it did not get as bad as I expected based on the movie I watched yesterday. So that was positive for me at least, and it didn't last very long. I literally had to like close my eyes during the movie yesterday. Like it was not.
I do not love that. I will not be seeing that movie.
No, it's okay. And then. So after all this time with the grandmother, Marcus gets in his face again, and he finally looks him in the eye, and we see that one of his eyes is the demon eye, which we already knew it was the demon and all in his head, but it's just a little different when you see it.
Yeah.
And then we go back to real life Marcus and Bennett, and Simon is trying to break Marcus down because obviously Marcus is like the more emotional one of him and Bennett, although he also is the stronger one, but that's fine. And he's telling him, he's like, the church, didn't want you. They just built you up to be their killer. Like, they knew after you killed your dad that, like, you could kill again. And so they trained you. And then as soon as they didn't need you anymore, they threw you out. And Marcus is listening. And then he starts telling a story about 6 blind men go into a room. Have you heard this story?
I have.
Can you discuss? Because I meant to look it up and read it, and then I'm just now saying the story I put beside it.
I've only heard it in the context of it being like an inappropriate joke. Okay, so 6 Blind Men and the Elephant is a real book. Is a story adaptation of a famous poem by John Godfrey Saxe. From the mid 19th century. And it is basically, this article I'm reading is about how to teach it to an English language learning class. Oh, it's basically the idea of like understanding cultural perspectives and like it's a poem about like from a British writer who went to India and then like basically like told the story of six different people seeing the world completely differently. So like
That makes sense.
every one of them is touching a different part of the elephant and trying to describe what the elephant looks like. But like if you touch an elephant's tail versus its trunk versus its ear, because they're you have no idea what this animal is actually like. I've heard it as an inappropriate joke because if six blind men touch an elephant, one of them touched the wrong thing. But
Yeah,
but no, Marcus was in fact talking about the correct interpretation
right. Yes,
of the story.
Appropriate one.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, and he uses it to say that he can see the whole elephant, and so he says that he can see the whole picture because he's seen the face of God, and that he would never die for the church. He would only die for God.
Okay. When I tell you this show is a horror show, it is clearly making comments about society. It is clearly making comments about the Catholic Church. It is clearly not meant to be like biblical praise, right? Because that's not the genre we're talking about. But when I tell you every hair on my body stood up in that moment, because as a Christian, I have never felt so fucking seen in a moment as in this part when he was like, yes, I am aware that the church is a problem. The church can be a problem. I don't do things for the church. I do it because of God. And the subtitles even have the capital H on the hymn. And I was like, oh
yes. Because it's like, it's such a comment on like Christianity as a whole of like, just because you're not with the church doesn't mean you're not making the best choices. Like,
right.
You see, Marcus is the one that's excommunicated. He's been kicked out, and he's the heart, and he's the only one that can save the Pope, even though he's not with the church anymore. Like, it's
and talking about the difference between relying on God as the idea of what man and the church and the scripture says, like, and versus relying on God as the truth. And like,
we knew we loved the angry man from the beginning.
Yes.
Ugh. So that was very fun. And then Simon, frustrated, blows the ashes into the air and goes to leave. And Maria is like, hey, yo, dude, I paid for everything. I should be able to like kind of lead this. And he's like, you can't even come with us. And she's just sitting on a bench with Marcus and Bennett and these two goons, I guess. I don't know who they are. And it was so dumb. And so Marcus starts antagonizing her. And that's where we left off. And we go to Angela. And the demon is talking to Reagan again. And in her brain, but then we come out to Angela and she has Casey hit Kat with the hammer. She says she will hit her with the hammer or she's going to tear Henry's arms off. And I was so distraught. I didn't think we were going to make it to drawn and quartered, but like I didn't know what was going to happen. And she's like, just hit her in the knee.
I was very distraught. I was very distraught because then Henry was also like apologizing to them and saying like his last farewells and telling the girls how much he loved them and was like, don't hurt each other. I'll die for you. Like, that's fine. That's what my job is as a dad. And I was like hyper.
As always, the strong one.
Kat says, fuck that shit.
She stood up to Angela earlier this episode, and then she took the hammer and she hit her own knee. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I could do that.
Oh, I don't. I know for sure I could not do it.
I don't think I could, but gosh, she's so.
That's not fair. I say right now that I don't think I could because like in any normal situation,
right.
I could not
like if I told you myself, hit yourself with a hammer now,
right? Like that would not. But if the choices were watch my dad's arms get ripped out of his body or hit myself in the hammer and the knee with a hammer, I fuck my kneecap. Like,
yeah, I would like to believe I would also do that. But it's just hard to like imagine.
It is hard to imagine. It is hard to imagine because also the idea of imagining my dad in that much pain like makes me want to die.
Yeah.
So,
So all bad things.
yeah.
But Kat takes the hammer, hits herself in the knee. And then we go back to Reagan, who's in her room, and she's begging the demon to quit, who obviously is not.
Of course not.
And then we go back to Bennett Marcus, and Bennett starts hearing voices. And he starts hearing specifically his sister's voice. And he's just telling her, I'm sorry, Anna, I'm sorry. And Marcus is like, oh no. He's like, this is not going to go
It was
well.
also like, oh no.
Yeah. So I was
I
like,
did
he's
not care
about
for
to
that.
let this demon into him because he thinks it's his sister. So before that can happen, Marcus starts antagonizing Maria, and he starts saying, poor little Renfield, which is a reference from Dracula. And he starts like terrorizing her. He's like, all you ever wanted was this. You're never going to get it. How does it feel to be like left out? You're left on the bench like always. And Maria gets angry, as he thought she would, and she gets up and she finally gets her possession. And it worked out so that Bennett didn't, which is nice. And then Marcus breaks free and gets him. I assume he set Bennett free as well, but he started attacking all the goons, and everything was chaos. And we see that Maria has taken in the demon, and she's not reacting well to it so far. But
yeah.
So we have a brief moment where Angela is still watching Tomas before we flash back to the dream of Tomas.
Yes.
And Marcus is again saying mean things to him and telling him how terrible he is, yada yada.
Yeah.
And Tomas is just trying to wake up and he can't figure out how to wake himself up. And Marcus is like holding the knife up to his throat, and he's like, here, this is the only way to do it. And Casey notices that in real life he is holding the knife up to his throat and starts yelling at him. And at this moment, he gets a flash to the church, and he realizes that he's like seeing it, and he's like, suicide is a sin. He's like, I can't do this. This isn't really going to happen. And then Angela picks up the hammer, and this is where Tomas starts telling Marcus that he has sinned. And this is where he goes in his little monologue. And at this point, Casey, we're kind of jumping back and forth. So Casey's trying to talk to Angela, and she's like, I know you're still in there. Just listen to me. You don't do this. And Tomas is reflecting on his sins. Angela has like thrown Casey to the table. She's like stabbing into her eye, and I thought bad things were gonna happen here.
Eyeball stuff again. Ugh.
Yeah. And then Tomas starts saying he doesn't have nothing, but he has what he needs. He has love, faith, or hope and faith. And he wakes up. Thank goodness.
Which was a beautifully powerful moment, but it was made all the better by the next moment, because like it was like the most powerful, like, yes, he overcame everything moment. He confessed everything. And then she just goes, you gotta be kidding me. And I was like, yes.
Yes. And he starts praying, and he has never looked so strong. Like, so like in his conviction.
He was glowing.
He threw Angela across the room. And then we start seeing them while chaos is happening. We're scanning over Casey's room. We're scanning over family photos. And the house is just being destroyed. And we just hear Tomas yelling prayers. And Henry and Kat are trying to leave, and Casey's right behind them. And then Casey's like, I just can't leave.
Yeah.
And she turns around and pulls out a Bible.
Well, she picks up Tomas's Bible that he dropped.
Yes. She picks up Tomas's Bible, and we jump to the Pope's arrival. So Marcus is running as fast as he can, which is, it makes me think, this is not a humor podcast in this sense, but it does make me think of like that little game you used to play where you tried to run with the guy with the legs and he just fall over all the time. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. It made me think of game. it made me think of, oh God, what is that movie? Maybe it's Shaun of the Dead, where the zombies start moving really fast, and he's like, "What the fuck? Zombies aren't supposed to move like that. Like they're
Yeah,
supposed to be slow."
I think that is Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, the way he was running and like holding his arms because they were bleeding, and he was like tripping and he couldn't really run. It reminded me of the scene of Shaun of the Dead where Shaun figures out that zombies can run and is baffled.
Yeah, it was
Like
a
that's
non-humorous but
yeah.
humor reference.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed
Um,
to be funny, and in the moment it didn't feel funny, but the visuals of it were a little funny.
we're a little funny, yeah. And we're kind of jumping around again. We have Angela comes back up. She knocks Tomas over, and the whole family comes back. Kat and Henry have joined Casey, and they're saying the Lord's Prayer, which feels very powerful.
It was
Um,
beautiful.
and then at the parade, we see the cars pulling up, and they stop so everyone can wave at the Pope. And the demon priests are there, lined up across the route, and they just have this like ear piercing noise so that everyone starts like bleeding and
Ugh.
can't do anything. And then we also, which is very synonymous with what's happening in the house, because now Angela's face is bleeding, like all over her pores, blood is coming out, and the demon is getting super angry. And then Reagan, I'm calling Dream Angela Reagan if it hasn't,
Yeah,
so I can
that
keep them
makes
straight in my
makes
head.
sense. Yeah.
So Reagan decides she's done just hanging around, and she opens the door to fight. And we jump back to the parade where Simon is going up to the Pope, and he just puts his hand on the window, and you can see a bit of like confusion and fear in the Pope's face, like he doesn't really know what's going on. Um, and then we jump back to Regan, who is beating up the demon. She's beating the crap out of the demon. Good
Up.
for her. And then Simon tells the Pope, the morning star sends his greetings. And Marcus immediately pops up and just slits his throat. And that was an incredible
with a cross, like a crucifix.
with the cross. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So no, yeah.
perfect.
I don't know if it's considered a cross or a crucifix, because I think a crucifix has to have Jesus on it, but that was a cross that was made of the nails with a crown on
Yeah.
it, and so I don't know. Like it's a fuzzy one where I
I
don't
don't
know
know
if it.
either. Yeah, but definitely a religious artifact,
Correct.
regardless. And then we go at the same moment, we go back to Angela's body, which raises and then breaks, which is no good.
Oh, that was a little freaky.
And I will say I laughed when we go back to the Pope. He just looks at Marcus and does the sign of the cross. And then Marcus
Yeah.
just like walks off, and it was like,
Yeah, like he's like, thank you, sir, for saving me, but also I do not condone murder, but like I'm a little okay. Okay.
yeah. And then we go back to Reagan, who walks out of the door and leaves the demon behind and closes him in her space.
Beautiful.
So we go to Casey and Marcus, and Casey, they're talking, and he's like, man, I have just looked at your face so many times. And he's like, starts talking about, he's like, I've seen it with like covered in pus and sores. And he's like, I like this version much better. And I was like, yeah, this is a better one.
Yeah, a little bit, just a little bit nicer.
Yeah. And she started kind of like asking about other exorcisms he's done. And he's like, some of them have lived, some of them haven't. It just, things happen.
It wasn't even about them living. It wasn't about them living or not. It was about them being okay after the fact. She's like, how do people live with this? And he was like, some of them get over it, some of them don't. But like, all you can do is
her.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says the only thing you can do is you have to remind yourself every day, wake up and remind yourself that you're alive and that everything that happens is not your fault. He's like,
well, and he also says, that's the deal we make every time we get out of bed. And he's like, not even just like people who have gone through this, everyone, the deal you make every time you get out of bed is that you are grateful to be alive, and that whatever happens to you isn't your fault.
Right.
And that is
It's so powerful.
It's so powerful. It's like so.
I almost tried to take it again and make it a spiritual quote out of spiritual guidance out of Marcus's quotes. One day I'm gonna do it. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
I did.
Beautiful.
I was like, that's a little dark, probably, for our spiritual guidance.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
Yeah. And so Henry and Casey are calling her, and I was like, well, it is settled. This is how it ends. We were right. Tomas lived, Marcus lived, shockingly Bennett lived, and the 3 family members are on their way. So we go to Tomas, Marcus, and Bennett, who are chilling at the diner. The news of the Pope's kerfuffle is on the TV. And then they just start talking about defacing Bibles.
Oh my God, that was my favorite. He was like, defacing the Bible is sacrilege. And he was like, it's not defacing, it's redacting. And he was like, the bird drawings? He goes, oh, well, no, those ones are defacing. And I was like, that, as someone who accidentally doodles birds and hearts on everything while I'm thinking, like without even really thinking, I felt that in my soul. I was like, I'm not doing this because I hate these words. I'm just doing this because I can't help but draw birds. It's not my fault.
It was so funny. And then Bennett is getting up to leave, and he's like, please try to stay out of trouble. Like,
and they both look at each other like, us? Trouble? What? No. And I'm like,
we would never. So funny. And then they go off on a walk, and Tomas asks Marcus to stay and train him as an exorcist. And he's like, you know what you're getting into. And I'm like, first of all, you've had this conversation 75 times, but okay.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, we're going back and forth a bit. Because we go to Maria, who is meeting with the police commissioner.
Oh, yeah.
And so he finally sees that she's got the third eye. We jump back, and Tomas is like, yeah, he's like totally in for it. He's like, I did it for real this time. I saw God. He's like, there's no going back now.
That's how they get you. The first hit's always free. I feel like I've never related to anyone more than I relate to this potentially gay, angry priest man. Like, that is just...
Yes, I get it. Also, I don't know how free that was, but that was a lot. It's a lot of work, but it's all right. You had to admit all of your sins and do 2 exorcisms, and then you get to see the face of God. I would not call that free.
Right.
But that's fine, I guess. And so we go back to Maria, and she's talking, and he's like, but we didn't finish the job. And she's like, Sebastian wasn't the finish line, and Simon got greedy. And I was like, oh no.
Well, and because he also, the police chief was pissed that she got like a demon. Yeah. He was like, how do you always get what you want? She's like, because I do.
Right.
Bitch.
Right. Which, like, obviously, which threw off my like thing where I was like, I think she's gonna be the one to help him.
Oh, I was so convinced. I was so convinced. I was
even
wrong.
Especially when they left her there, I was like, she's gonna get so mad at them for leaving her that she's gonna turn to like Marcus and Bennett.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, even in that moment, I was convinced.
But I am more glad that she did this than if it had been the other way around and Bennett had been possessed, because I would not have been okay with Bennett being possessed.
No. Yeah. 100%. And then we go to a shot of Tomas and Marcus walking off into the sunshine together. But wait, that's not the end of the episode. While it feels like it is.
Yes.
We go to Casey and Kat, who are walking around their new property, and they look back, and good old Dad's waving. And then he just walks over a bit more, and Angela's still alive.
She's paralyzed and in a wheelchair, but she's alive.
And he says, how do you feel? And it ends with her just saying, safe. The whole family lived and moved away, and everyone's fine. And she defeated the demon who's not coming back. Ugh.
Beautiful. I almost wish that there wasn't a second season.
I know, that was actually a really good like closure.
It was really good closure because like you have enough of a like, okay, the only thing is like if the Maria and the police chief scene, that would have had to go. If it just ended with the family closure and Marcus and Tomas deciding together that they were going to work on it together, that would have been like a perfect ending. But because they threw the Maria scene in there, there has to be more to that story. So obviously there's going to be a second season, but the second season is going to continue the overarching story, but not the rant story.
Right. And I will say, I thought when we saw Maria with the foaming mouth, I was like, did this demon go inside of her and die?
I thought that's what happened too. I thought she died.
Because, you know, the demon in Angela was like, you couldn't handle it. Like, they don't go in you because you, like, you know, they smell the need on the desperation or whatever. And I was like, maybe her body literally couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
But alas, that is not what happened. She just looked demented and sickly at first.
Right.
Let's save any predictions for season 2 for our season 1 wrap up. Because I am as stunned as you about what we're going to talk about next week. So hopefully there's some good stuff coming up. But today I don't know what it is. Unfortunately, I do not have any trivia for you today because we all know IMDb hates trivia about The Exorcist. So correct. I will do some research and find you some for next week. I will say I'm going to miss the Rance family. They grew on me, but I'm stoked about what's to come. I hope it doesn't suck. Man, I hope it doesn't suck because it could really go one way or another.
I know it could just be terrible. I don't know.
Yeah, it could just be terrible. But while we're here, who do you want to punch in the face?
Maria.
Yeah, she's the one.
She's the fucking worst.
Yeah. Yeah. I would also like to punch Maria, but in lieu of that, I will, as is my MO, punch Simon, who has already died. Yeah. So, you know.
You do punch dead people often.
I do enjoy punching dead people. So, it's a great in a zombie film.
Yeah.
But yeah, so who is your MVP?
This is a much more difficult question.
Isn't it?
There is very few people that weren't fucking rock stars this episode. It was crazy how many characters just like fucking stepped it up in this episode. I had a very hard time with this, but I am going to choose Tomas for the reason I really wanted to pick Marcus because he said so many quotes that just made my heart soar. But going back to the idea of The Exorcist and the original story and everything, in the movie, the problem is that the young priest doesn't get over his shit and doesn't survive the exorcism. And Tomas breaks that mold and gets his life together and performs the exorcism and saves the day. And despite thinking that integration had already happened and thinking like in a case that no one else would have opened, he goes for it and goes for it in the most honest, like truly repentant, I fucked up and the only way to save anyone else is to know that I'm not the one who has the power and that it is God. Mm-hmm. And that is
10 out of 10. Yeah. He is the right answer. However, I want to pick someone who's not coming back since our last chance. So I am.
So you're gonna pick Kat.
I'm not, but it is hard.
I was so sure you were gonna pick Kat.
I wanted to, but I also wanted to pick Casey for coming back and like then waking Tomas up and like they all did such good things. But I'm going with Reagan because she's the reason they were able to fight this because she separated that one piece of herself.
Yeah,
and she used in her mind to beat up the demon and in her body. Like, she was able to save them all, even though it was not great.
Right.
So I'm going with Reagan, and I wish her the best. I wish them all the best, and I'm going to also pick Kat and Casey. But
It's okay. I told you why I picked Marcus and Tomas, but then pretended that I only picked Tomas, so that's fine.
right,
So
exactly. This was just like it was a really good. It was a really good
it's
series
so
finale
it's
episode.
so in
So,
in a podcast that talks about genres that so rarely have happy endings, a finale that just like genuinely feels like a good, happy, everybody gets to live today ending is so nice.
I know. Ugh. And that everyone did good things to get there.
Yeah.
Like
You
only
know,
the bad guys were bad and all the good guys were extra good. Like
yeah.
it was
You know the episode of Doctor Who and the Christopher Eccleston series where he's like, just this once, everybody lives. Like that is how I
yes.
felt about this episode. I was like, that's where I'm at.
I need a Doctor Who rewatch. I need to catch up on Doctor Who and then I need a Doctor Who rewatch. But yeah. So I'm glad we could leave you on a happy ending here. Please refer back to the beginning of the episode for all of our requests that we've asked
Yes.
for and assignments for this week. If you do accomplish any of that or just want to talk to us or just want to say why you love any of the Rants family members so much, please email us, deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CECloud13.
Follow me everywhere at ENKAY_superstar.
And we will see you on Sunday for Sci-Fi Sunday, and we will see you next Thursday for our season 1 wrap up. So be there or be square. Bye.